Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this Thursday morning webinar. I am Chloe Tetro. I'm the coaching lead here with Ready Care. For this morning, we're going to be looking at the topic of navigating dry January, and it goes out to all of you doing it currently and those of you that feel, have I missed the boat on it? I'll basically be looking at some of the benefits of reducing alcohol intake overall, looking at how alcohol impacts your metabolism overall and overall health. So we'll look at things around weight, insulin resistance, and at the end, I'll just provide a few more practical strategies on how to help you stay motivated throughout the month. So it's basically just a very, very quick opportunity to reflect on your habits. Give yourself the month if you're partaking, and if you feel like you've missed the boat, there's still another few weeks in there, and you can always do the 4 weeks with it. So I'm hoping that you'll find this morning helpful just to kind of put into perspective the huge amounts of benefits in the reduction of alcohol. Now, I have a comment section, so if you guys have any questions at any point, please feel free to pop them in there. So can you see that okay? I think we'll have a look. Is that all right? I can also make it a wee little bit bigger. But overall, so reducing alcohol intake, even temporarily, will really offer a massive benefit, as we all know. So alcohol is a toxin. So that's the main thing that I want to kind of have a chat about for this morning, is the fact that alcohol is a toxin. Now, it's a toxin that we choose sometimes to have an intake around, one that's limited, but overall, it doesn't take away from that in the first place. So it impacts nearly every single system in the body. So it increases the risk of cardiovascular disease, which is the big one. It increases the risk of certain cancers, liver damage, and neurotoxicity. So toxicity to the brain. So research has shown that alcohol use follows a dose-dependent relationship with these risks. And what I mean by that is the more is consumed, the higher the likelihood of the harm. So the more and the more often. So I often chat to people and they say, look, I don't really drink that much, but I will drink fairly often. I'll have 2 or 3 drinks every single day, maybe a little bit more. Or otherwise, you have people that are on the opposite side that won't drink during the week, but then will have an awful lot of drinking, all compounded into the weekend aspect of things. So there's a comprehensive meta-analysis of 83 studies confirms that alcohol contributes to all-cause mortality, from liver disease to accidents and injuries. So overall, not a good idea. And there's a popular idea that'll say that moderate drinking, like a glass of red wine, and I heard this, I've been in health and wellness 11 years, and I've always heard this. The glass of red wine, it's good for you. That's a total misconception. So while red wine contains resveratrol, that compound that people say resveratrol is good for you, which is an antioxidant linked to heart health, you would really need to drink huge amounts of wine to get the levels of resveratrol that are in any way beneficial. So think of it as if I'd said to you, do you know what is a really good health tip? Is have a nibble off your gate on the way to work. It contains huge amounts of iron, so it's a great habit to get into. It's silly, but that's essentially what linking things like red wine to heart health is a little bit like that. Yes, it does have particular compounds in it that help, but overall, it's a net negative. Is that the word? Net negative? It's net negative. I think that's the word. So when you're participating in dry January, you're really giving your body a chance to recover and to reset. Short-term abstinence has been linked to massive improvements in sleep quality, energy levels, and mental clarity. Now, if you think of a night that you've had a great night's sleep, and that, the rest of your day goes fantastically. Fantastically. It goes a lot better than it does. And you say, jeepers, I've had a great night's sleep. It does have a massive impact. So every time that you drink, it really negatively impacts that sleep aspect of things. So By participating even over the course of a few weeks, giving your body a course of a few weeks where your sleep gets better, it improves, your energy levels get better and improve, and your mental clarity get better and improve, has a massive impact on your quality of the experience of your day. You're a lot more able to engage. You're a lot more able for what life throws at you because you have more energy. You're able to think better. You're able to sleep better in the evening. So lots of people do the kind of nightcap aspect of things, but to help with sleep. Now, with that, alcohol can initially, at the very beginning stages, help with, bringing on drowsiness or bringing down perceived stress levels. But in the course of the evening, it will actually disrupt your sleep even more than if you never had it in the first place. I've got a study published in Health Psychology found that reduced symptoms of anxiety, of depression after just 1 month without alcohol. So additionally, you have the JAMA Network Open research, which demonstrated measurable liver function improvements. Now, we'll know that, we'll instinctively and I suppose logically know that 4 weeks off of alcohol, the liver is going to feel a lot happier with it. But from an anxiety and depression perspective, especially if you look at the time of year, darker days, it's cold, we're all miserable and a little bit frozen, and money is not as free flowing for most people as it is in December. So in that part of the year, it's a huge service to your mental health to bring down your alcohol consumption, knowing that, studies are out there to show that anxiety and depression, the things that usually would be quite up at this time of year for people, goes right back down with just a little bit of abstinence from alcohol. So it also gives you a very good opportunity to reflect on your actual habits around alcohol and look at new ways for you to manage stress and socialize. An awful lot of people will have a tendency to lean on alcohol for socialization or for stress management. So with it, it's going to highlight to you. So when you remove that little crutch from the equation, it's really going to show you the reality of what you without that function like. What are your stress levels like? Are there huge changes in your life that you're now totally aware of that you go, jeepers, the stress levels I've been operating under have just been exponential. Something's got to give here. It gives you an opportunity to actually see those things instead of sticking a little plaster on the wound, to actually look at those. If you are noticing that either you struggle a little bit socially, that's fantastic to know. That's fantastic to know that you do, because now you're able to actually go, okay, are there things that I can change around that? Do I need to change my social circles to people I'm a little bit more comfortable with? Because I find myself, every time I go to meet this particular group of people, my anxiety goes up. I don't feel good about it. So it's essentially giving you a real clear view of what is happening. So let's look at the actual impact on metabolism and fat storage. And that's a huge component aspect. I'll just make that a little bit bigger there for you guys. That's a huge component aspect as to why people actually want to try dry, if I could say it now, I'd be doing great. Dry January is, in January, they've decided, look, I'm going to look after my health overall, but I'd also like to maybe look after my weight and look after my metabolic health, my overall metabolic health. So alcohol disrupts the body's ability to metabolize nutrients, and that encourages fat storage. So when you consume alcohol, the liver prioritizes metabolizing the alcohol over burning fat. So essentially, it's not going to be burning fat very well, because it'll say, look, we need to get this alcohol out of the system before we do anything else. So if you're somebody that's working on weight loss, not everybody is, but if you are somebody that's working on weight loss, for the period of time that your body is breaking down the alcohol, there is no fat burning happening. So if you're doing all of the, the food aspects of things right, the exercise aspects of it right, but having alcohol on a nightly basis, glass of wine or whatever it may be, just be aware of that. Excuse me. So the liver will prioritize metabolizing the alcohol, and it will slow the fat oxidation by up to 73%, which is a huge amount, really. It's a huge slowdown in the rate. If I said to you, your car is only going to run by 73% of the speed that it usually does, you'd say, Chloe, get out of here. How did you get into my house and leave my car alone? So instead of using fat for energy, the body will then process the alcohol into acetate. which becomes a temporary fuel source. So it's going to run off of that alcohol for a while, which is why when we consume alcohol, especially in fairly less than modest quantities on a night out, there's a tendency to get what's called colloquially, you get the second wind, hopefully not literally, but you get that kind of increase energy just for a little period of time. You're a bit more rowdy, you're getting a lot more animated, you're thinking, jeepers, let's run down this road, let's race each other and steal a traffic cone or whatever it is that people do. So that's where a little bit of that extra energy is coming in. You all want to show the steps you learned in Irish dancing steps in primary school. It's all coming out the party pieces. So essentially that's what's happening there. Is the alcohol is becoming a temporary fuel source. It's also a major contributing factor in fatty liver disease. Now, we know this where alcoholic fatty liver disease is concerned, but actually both alcoholic fatty liver disease and the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease involve fat accumulation in the liver. So that increases the risk of metabolic syndrome. So that's difficulty with weight loss, type 2 diabetes, and cardiovascular disease. So there's multiple studies, particularly in the Lancet, that highlight the global burden of alcohol-related liver damage. So when you have high sugar alcohol beverages, things like cocktails, alcopops, sweet wines, they all worsen these effects by causing really rapid spikes in blood sugar levels and insulin levels. So, for example, if you have a pint of cider, which contains about 45 grams of sugar, which is roughly equivalent to 15 teaspoons once it's broken down in your system. 15 teaspoons in a pint of cider. So not only does this promote fat storage, but it also exacerbates insulin resistance. So beers, ciders, things that would be described as liquid bread, they all have similar effects. While cocktails with mixers like soda and juice are much, much worse and have much higher increased sugar intake in the body. So when I say about insulin resistance, what I mean there is essentially after a while, when you're getting lots of sugar in your system, your blood sugar rises, the body's going to pump out insulin. And if that keeps happening, the body's pumping out insulin, it's not quite regulating the blood sugars the way that it should do. So it basically causes a little bit of a breakdown in that system. Your body's pumping more and more insulin. It's not reacting the way that it should. You have this surplus of insulin going through your body. Now, insulin is a fat storage hormone. That's something to remember. So anywhere that you have an increase in your insulin, it's going to tell your body to store fat, be that in your circulatory system, going through all of the different parts of your body. People that might say, look, I'm doing all the right things and I'm finding it terribly difficult to lose weight. What is going on? I've been told I'm probably heading for pre-diabetes and there's some fat accumulation around my liver. That's a difficulty with insulin. So with that, why the liver holds it as well as anything that's circulating through the liver with high insulin, it's basically telling a chemical message to your body to produce and promote fat storage and make getting rid of fat exceedingly difficult. Now, that's a kind of wide angle lens. If you look at it again from a weight loss perspective, you can see how the two can intertwine. Now, we know this again instinctively. Beer belly, that would be our primary example of why is it that beer tends, and pints and stouts and ciders tend, people that drink those oftentimes have the kind of typical kind of body shape that goes with that, where somebody that drinks wine, for example, might not have that. Now, they might both be going ham on it in particular ways. And I'm not saying that, drinking loads and loads of wine is, better where those things are concerned. But where you're looking at the body types associated with that, that's where some of the differences are coming in there. So when you have that liquid bread types of alcohols, they more likely than others will spike up your insulin levels, which are going to cause all of those difficulties I've mentioned with fat storage. So also with alcohol, we have the impaired decision making. And that's the biggie really. So this leads to overeating and craving for calorie dense, high carb foods. We've all been there at the end of an evening where most people at the end of a night will absolutely hang their body out to dry if they means they can get fish and chips or kebab or pizza on the way home. So the behaviors associated with it, and you could think to yourself the following day: jeepers, I've been working so hard at this, why did I do that? It's the behavioral aspect of things and the high cravings that go with that. So when you choose lower carb options, things like dry wines have 2 grams of carbohydrates per glass. Spirits with diet mixers, they will significantly reduce alcohol's impact on your metabolism. So going into some of the evidence-based tips for success. So whether you're doing dry January now or flirting with the idea of, doing the rest of the month, or just reducing your intake this year, you might have said to yourself at the start of January, yeah, look, I'm just going to keep an eye on my alcohol intake now for the year. Staying committed with lower alcohol intake, particularly if you've been in a habit of higher alcohol intake, it does require a level of preparation, self-awareness, and practical strategies. So here are a few for you. So defining your why, reflecting on your motivations is huge. I can't overstate this. You'll have the likes of Simon Sinek that says this an awful lot on his talks. And if you're interested in that aspect of things, look him up, find your why, type that into YouTube. Absolutely brilliant. So whether it's improving your health, saving money, or whatever types of health-based or other-based habits, connecting with your why. Why are you doing this? What is your motivation? Increases both resilience during challenges and it makes the goal appear a lot easier. So studies show that intrinsic motivation, that real kind of personal reason for doing this, it's not just I want to give up alcohol, full stop. Right, that's it. That's my reason, motivation done. Why do you want to do that? What about it in your personal life? I want to have better health. I want to have more energy. I want to have better relationships in my life that aren't clouded by alcohol's impact. When you have an intrinsic motivation, i.e. a why, it's linked to your personal values and long-term goals, the type of life that you want to have and the type of person you want to be. These are the absolute golden key to helping sustain behavioral change. The other aspect of it's a bit more practical is create an alcohol-free environment. So set yourself up in the same way that you'll have noticed during Christmas time. It's a lot harder to say no to sweets because they're all over the place. It's a lot easier to say no to sweets in January because all of the messaging is different. Everybody's talking about prime your health, do this, new year, new you, all this kind of stuff. It becomes a lot easier to do things when you don't have constant visual priming. So removing alcohol from your home, replacing it with alternatives that you actually want to have, whether that's alcohol-free options, sparkling waters, herbal teas, whatever it is, having them in eyesight will make a huge difference. Behavioral research will confirm that reducing your exposure to triggers makes it much easier to break habits. And on the flip side of it, having constant visual priming of things that you actually want to engage in is going to make those new habits a lot easier to take on. So planning for social situations can be a challenge. Now, some people don't feel that they're at the point where, they're ready to gung-ho go to a nightclub or something in January. And if that's you, that's no problem. Share your goals with your friends and your family and people that you like and trust. Bring your own non-alcoholic options. Have specific socializations that don't involve alcohol. Without that in place, what you can find is a degree of social isolation can come into things, and all of a sudden you've got this false comparison, which is essentially, on one hand, yes, I can drink alcohol, but I'll have a life, and on the other, if I don't drink alcohol, that's better for me. But all of a sudden, I'm at home on my Todd. I have no life, no socializations. And one can start to think in those binaries where that's not the case. The whole world of in-betweens happen. You can have both. You can have both a social life, interactions, fun, and you can have an alcohol-free environment, but it will likely just require initially a little bit more effort to organize things outside of the norm if your norm has been to socialize in a pub environment. So just finding people that you know, like, and trust. I say that because there's a lot of people we might know and not particularly like and not particularly trust. So find the good ones and create, let them know what you're doing and just say, look, do you want to go, I don't know, people say on a hike, but if somebody offered that to me as an alternative, I'd say they can go take the hike by themselves and I'll stay behind. But whatever it is that you would enjoy doing, that you know, people coming over or whatever it may be, go and walk the dogs, whatever it may be. So managing cravings. Cravings are super, super normal aspect of giving up anything, whatever it may be, but particularly things that are linked to a wonderful cocktail, and I include foods in this, a cocktail by design, things that are designed to produce this huge brain cocktail of hormones. It's very, very pardon me, serotonin, endorphins, all of these type of things, not hormones. So cravings are a natural but manageable part of giving anything up or stopping engaging in particular behaviors that you found harmful. So if you want to distract yourself a little bit from that, you will overcome them. Oftentimes it's a matter of days, particularly if you're not having visual priming. So once you are out of the visual priming aspect of things, cravings drop an awful lot. Making sure that you understand that cravings are not you failing. They're just a natural part of what has a tendency to happen in around this time when anything is stopped. This, like smoking, foods, whatever it may be. You haven't failed because you have a craving, is basically what I'm getting at here. Understand that it's a natural part of the process and allow yourself to go through the discomfort of that process without putting meaning making on yourself or anything like that or any of your efforts. So reframing setbacks, slip-ups don't mean failure. You know, if you've had a drink for whatever reason or whatever it may be, if there's been a special occasion that it's been very, very difficult or whatever it may be to not be able to keep it up as much as you'd have liked to, it's very easy to give oneself an out when there's been a small setback. So slip-ups don't mean failure. In fact, research in journals of substance abuse treatment shows that reframing those setbacks as learning opportunities helps to reduce the self-blame, maintain progress. So if you have a slip-up, there are plenty more days in the month, there are plenty more days in the year. Do not allow it to mean anything about you, right? That's the biggest invitation I'd give out there is oftentimes the biggest disservice we can do ourselves is to make things mean things that they maybe shouldn't. If I've had a drink on the month that I said I wouldn't, it means I'm a failure. It means I'll never be able to do anything I set my mind to. This is more evidence that anytime I try to do something, God, I was brilliant at it for a few days, and here we have it, the inevitable, I find myself back to not being able to do basic things, whatever meaning making one places on it. In reality, that type of frame is going to make you feel absolutely miserable. If anybody spoke to you the way we all speak to ourselves, you'd probably give them a slap. But the way that we speak to ourselves will trigger emotions. The worse you feel about yourself, the more difficult change is going to become. The more you tell yourself you are this type of person, the more your system is going to try to make you correct. So if something happens, take this away from this talk. Do not allow it to mean anything about you as a human being, your efforts, your capabilities. It just means, in the grand scheme of things, it's not really that big a deal. You've had an off, go right back in. Oftentimes, if I was to put on a kind of meaner hat, it's very, very handy way out of something is to say, oh yeah, I had a little slip up, I had a crisp there at lunchtime, I might as well give up my diet altogether. No, that's, you know, that's a very easy out. The more long-term kind thing to yourself and adult hat way of viewing things is to view them as isolated events. Did you have a crisp since you woke up this morning every minute that the day went by? No, you know, not the end of the world. Challenge yourself, you know, challenge yourself with these type of things to actually, if it's difficult for you to reframe it, say, I remember your one there the other morning saying that, reframe it as, yeah, I had a slip up. What happened there? What actually happened that I found it more difficult to say no than I have for the rest of it. Okay, I was hungry, I was tired, I was with my friends, they were putting a bit of pressure on me, or I was a bit fed up and I didn't want to get into a conversation. So straight away here, you've loads of information. What led up to that? Energy levels are important. Stress levels are important. It's important if I want to do well with this that I actually have to emotionally regulate myself. Oh God, what a terrible thing to have to do. They're all hugely beneficial information to have. So don't worry about the occasional slip up that happens. It is exceedingly normal. We are human beings. Anyone who's never had a slip up once in their life is either the most boring person in the world or a liar, is the way that I think about these things. So just a little recap of the motivation aspect of things. So keep your why front and center, exceedingly important. Cannot stress this enough. Know why you're doing this and get personal with yourself. You never have to show these things to another human being. But if you know, right, dig into yourself. Why is this really important for me to do now and not to kick the can down the road a little bit further? What is happening right now in my life that I actually need to show myself I can do this, or that it's very important for me to do that? If you can write that down somewhere, you can see it, right? You can have it at the background of your phone, or you can have it somewhere that people aren't really likely to see it. What I tend to do with these types of things is I set an alarm on my phone. Twice a day, the message is going to pop up. I'll just get rid of it, snooze it, or whatever it may be. But constantly, I'll have that message on a timer that will go off on my phone, provided my phone is on vibrate, because if my alarm went off each time, I'd probably smash the phone. So make sure that you have good people that you know, like, and trust surrounding you and as a support system. So whether they're joining you in doing that or just encouraging your efforts, having accountability boosts chance of success utterly and totally. There's lots of online communities. There's lots of, what's it, 1 Year No Beer is one of them I can think off the top of my head. There's apps like Try Dry. There's also groups, Reddit groups, Facebook groups, whatever it may be. People are hugely, hugely, hugely kind with their experiences on a good day or a bad day. And it matters an awful lot to feel like you're not going through specific things by yourself. Replacing habits. So if alcohol is a part of your routine, find enjoyable alternatives. Now, herbal tea, sparkling water with fruit, is that an enjoyable alternative? For some people, it is. There's alcohol-free beverages. There are treat beverages, things that usually for the rest of the year you say, am I going to spend this amount of money on this, kombucha? Lots of people say, nah, I'm not spending $3.50 per bottle. Do in January. If it's something you know that you enjoy and you say, look, I want to have a little sip of something as I'm watching something in the evening, have alternatives that you enjoy. Pair this with new habits if you can. Is there going to be an evening walk in there? Is there going to be a healthier routine? Is there going to be something that punctuates these things and lets you know that you're making huge progress into becoming a more healthy version of yourself, or a version of yourself that you're growing into and liking more by the day? So celebrate your progress. That's a huge one. Acknowledge your milestones when you've completed your first week, or your first social event, or your first difficult conversation with somebody who absolutely wrecks your head. That would usually fire off these kind of stimuli. If you've done all of these things and you said, gosh, I handled that absolutely amazingly, pat yourself on the back, or tell somebody, whether it be one of your friends or somebody in a group. Be proud of those efforts, because all of these things stack up to your day, right? All of these things stack up to your experience of your day. They're all incredibly important and worth celebrating. Reflect and plan for the future. So take this month, if you're doing the month. This is an experiment, right? If you're able to, keep a little jot every day, 1 to 5. How do you feel physically, mentally? How do you feel without the alcohol? Do you feel clearer? What challenges do you face? So by the end of the month, you'll have really valuable insights to guide your future relationship with alcohol. You'll know yourself a lot better, particularly if you're giving yourself little markers along the way. Now, that might mean, having a deeper sense of who you are, what you will and won't stand. And I mean that with regards, do you actually enjoy listening to that person blabber on about whatever it is totally sober and they're not sober, you might think to yourself, actually, do I like this person at all in the first place? No, for some people, it's things like that. For most people, it's going to be down to how do you feel, right? Have you lost a bit of weight? Do you feel more energetic? Do you feel happier? Do you feel clearer? If you jot these things down, you're going to have loads of data to reflect on. So it isn't just about giving something up, right? It's about getting a level of control back, getting some clarity, and getting some confidence in your choices. There's huge steps in the right direction by even, thinking about this, by even looking at something like a webinar like this, by getting involved in that thought process. So really give yourself the opportunity to throw yourself at it for X amount of weeks and see how you feel with it. So I hope you guys found this helpful. I won't go over time. I have just gone over time. So I let you guys go for today. Any questions or comments, I love to receive them. Otherwise, best of luck and you're doing brilliantly. And we will see you next week. Bye now.